Before I get into today's video, I want to remind you to go on Facebook and join the group Derek Norwood Outdoors Forum, and we'll try to grow that group, and it's a lot easier to communicate and stuff on there than it is YouTube comments. I've had people ask me to do a video on different bucks I've killed over the years, so I pulled four skulls out here that I'll talk about, maybe tell a little story about. But before we get into that, I wanna kind of give a little history on my hunting history in Florida. A lot of y'all may have known my dad George through either through the taxidermy shop or the construction business or something. He was well known in Florida and well known for hunting, but he passed away in 2017 at age 62. So back when he was younger and my age, um, there wasn't the deer population in Florida wasn't what it is now, and and that age group growing up, like his mom had came out of the Great Depression. There was times, I heard a lot of stories. There was times when she went without food, so him and his brothers and sisters could eat. So I'm sure that factored in when he started deer hunting. His stepdad got him into deer hunting, and when he got into deer hunting, it was meat hunting. They didn't even look at horns, didn't care. If it was a legal deer, they shot it. And just through that age group, I'm sure, like I've heard stories, and I'm sure most of y'all have over the years of, people shot deer year round. They didn't pay attention to the hunting seasons. It was daylight or dark, it didn't matter. They shot deer year round and fed their families. So I think there's a few states, that are like that. Michigan, there are several states, but Florida, Florida's deer population was almost wiped out. In I guess it would have been in the 60s or 70s, maybe early 80s. Um, I remember when I was a kid, like little kid, just starting to remember, or old enough to remember, there was times, my dad started taking me hunting with him anytime he would go, basically when I got out of diapers. But when I can start remembering, there was times we would go weeks or possibly even an entire season without finding any buck sign, finding a buck track, seeing a buck. And back then those were legal with a bow and stuff. So a lot of times that's how he would get the meat. And then he kind of did what I would do, or I learned it from him as far as hunting different management areas. Sometimes some would be better than others, and he would he was a dog man too. So running dogs was a big thing, and we had we hunted like when I was a kid we hunted rich loam, and then we had what's now Green Swamp leased, or part of Green Swamp leased, 2 mile strip. I mean, there was some big bucks, but hunting big bucks is not even something that crossed my dad's mind, I don't think, at back then. So I grew up basically learning how to kill deer. Um, Now as he got older, I'm gonna say 50 years old probably, then he kind of switched to where he would hunt big bucks because the deer population was so much better. It wasn't near, he could always get enough meat to feed. That's all we basically, my parents didn't buy meat at a grocery store ever. Maybe chicken, but we raised chickens, so we really didn't buy any meat. Raised hogs, raised chickens, and shot deer, shot hogs, caught fish, killed turkeys. We basically, and had a big garden, so we didn't have to go to the store. So we basically lived off the land my whole childhood. So hunting big bucks for my dad didn't come around till, probably he was probably 50 or in his 50s, and then he started, and that was when maybe me and my brothers were old enough to shoot, quite a few deer, and we're filling freezers. So then he can kind of start trophy hunting. He don't have to shoot as many deer to feed the family, basically. So the I think the biggest deer he killed one big deer, and he scored like 142, I think. Um, but he killed a whole bunch of old deer. So when he started, if you want to call it trophy hunting, he was hunting age, but he wasn't necessarily hunting bone. And he had like where I like going deep in the swamps. He liked a lot of that type of hunting. But he bought a piece of property up in Zone D, um, and he just liked hunting that little piece of property. And he had like 8 or 10 different spots that he just loved to hunt. And he would pick out the oldest deer in the area, and that's the one he shot. Like, it may be a big cow horn spike. He didn't care about the horn. The man probably shot more spikes than anybody I ever met. I'm going to go through and try to find a bunch of pictures of him, hunting pictures, and take his old gun. And, and I think I'll feel guilty if I shoot a giant buck with it. So I think I'm just going to take his old gun this year and go shoot a buck and do a tribute show to him. So hopefully y'all be seeing that sometime next year or something. But anyway, the first year me personally would have ever hunted big bucks was in 1999. I think I was 14 years old. I can't do math, but by the time I was 14, I'd probably killed, I don't know, a bunch of bucks. Under 100, but a bunch. Um, Nothing huge, basket racks, eights and stuff like that. So in '99, which we used to hunt what is now Green Swamp West, back when it was private owned and leased. We used to go out there as guests occasionally because we had the property across the road leased. And then the state bought it, closed it down for 11 years. So we knew when that opened up, it was going to be prime time. And because other than poached, it basically hasn't been hunted in 11 years. So we applied for that hunt, or my dad applied for the hunt, and we drew. I think we put in for all of them, but we drew the first gun hunt. And so we went out there scouting all summer. I mean, every chance we had, and that's another thing. My parents homeschooled me and both of my brothers, so we never attended school. Instead of doing summer break, we did our school through the summer, and we took off from the day hunting season opened till the day it closes. We didn't have to do any school, so we basically lived to hunt, and we were able to fill freezers and that type of stuff. But we drew that gun hunt, went out there scouting a bunch. A couple of the first, the big, that non-typical, I think he's still world record velvet with a bow, but the big non-typical James Stovall killed was one of the first bucks we saw, with 2 or 3 other bucks, and then that was where we were going to focus. And then obviously James killed that one on the archery hunt before our hunt, but there was another bachelor group basically across the pond that had a big 10 and 2 big 8s. So that's the ones we ended up hunting. And my dad, he was strictly trophy hunting. So on that hunt, he passed every deer he saw and passed some nice ones just waiting because we had seen that 200-inch deer. So he's waiting on another one to walk by basically. So he didn't shoot anything. I was how we had set up, like basically my dad was, we were in climbers, and he was on one pond edge and I was on another pond edge, about 500-600 yards apart, I guess. But how we walked in, we got to a certain point about a mile in, and then we split. Well, let's back up just a little bit. The first day, first morning, I had an 8 point come by at 75, 80 yards, and I passed him. Nice 8 point. I let him walk, and that was hard to do it for. It's the biggest buck I'd ever seen, or that I could legally shoot with a gun in my hand. But I passed him, and then saw a couple more smaller bucks. So we get into, and it's basically the same thing for my dad. He's passing bucks, not seeing anything huge. We get into kind of basically the same thing day two, and we're hunting. We didn't move. We're hunting the same trees each day. So day three, we walk in that mile and split up. We hunted that morning, same thing, passing bucks, whatever. That evening, we came out for lunch, went back in to hunt, and it's early, or fairly early, maybe 3 o'clock or something. And I think this hunt was, I believe it was Thanksgiving week. I think I killed him on like November 22nd or something, if I'm not right, or not wrong. But anyway, so we walked in a mile, split up, and as I'm approaching my tree stand, there was a little kind of a oak flat, I guess you would call it, down in the swamp, and I heard something, I could hear all kind of rustling in the palmettos, so I just froze, and here comes some hogs rooting around. So I just keep right on walking, don't think nothing about it, and there was the bachelor group of bucks. There was three of the big bucks with the hogs, and I hadn't seen the bucks. So as I start walking, they take off running, and the biggest one was like a 135-inch tin probably. But he was running through the swamp, and I was, at 14 years old with a 270, I picked a couple holes, bow, 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 and missed him. So I was kicking the dirt, but went on into the, checked for blood, checked for everything, and ended up, I could track, it was dry, so I could track his tracks in the mud, or all three bucks' tracks across the cypress pond. And as I was coming out the other side, I could see them standing out there looking at me. It wasn't nothing hit or nothing, and they tipped off, so I just turned around and went back and got in the stand. I don't think I saw anything else that evening. So morning, it's a 4-day hunt. Morning number 4, I get in the stand, and about 8:30, 9 o'clock, the 8 point I'd passed on the first morning comes back by the opposite direction. I was, come to find out, I was set up on his sign is what it was, because I said there was a rub line that went across in front of me, and then a rub line that came across behind me, and that's what he did. With the first day I'd seen him, he had come across the rub line in front of me, and day number 4, he had come across the rub line behind me, so that was his circuit. But anyway, I shot him, and my dad never shot. He saw a decent buck that morning, but didn't shoot him. But ended up, that's the buck we killed, or I killed, and then that kind of burnt me, I guess, a little bit. I never applied for the hunt again. My dad and brothers and them put in for it, went out there and ended up killing some trophy bucks, but I never hunted it again. I started bow hunting at probably 12 years old, I guess. And the bows back then obviously wasn't what they are now. I think I was shooting probably 55 pounds. I was almost full grown at 14 years old. I was the size I am now, so I was almost full grown at 12. But I think I shot my first deer with a bow, a doe, at probably 12 years old, and that got me rolling. I shot a bunch of them after that, but back up until several years ago, there wasn't a bag limit on deer in Florida, so we were all shooting 8, 12, 16 bucks a season, every season. filling freezers. We never wanted to shoot too many doe. Once we got old enough, me and the brothers, and we were filling freezers with bucks, then we really didn't shoot does. We would shoot. I've only shot I've only shot two or three does in my life. My dad would shoot one occasionally with his bow in certain areas, but filling freezers was always priority for us. So going probably 2006, no, 2007 would probably be, I started kind of targeting bigger bucks, I guess you would say. Um, Not, nothing compared to what I do now, but at least I wanted to try to shoot the, and it may be 2.5, but I wanted to try to shoot the 8 points and stuff instead of shooting 4s and 6s and whatever came by that was legal. I at least, was shooting basket rack shapes and stuff like that. Um, and then that progressed. So go up, move up to 2000, 2009, and that's kind of where some of these pick up. Um, 2009, then I really started keying in, and I never, never ran trail cameras, any of that. It was strictly old school hunting. I didn't have a, I didn't have a smartphone with maps or anything until probably 2010. I just had an old flip phone thing that I rarely ever used. So it was old school hunting. Um, but I was always, I guess, good at reading sign because growing up, we wanted our best chances of putting deer in the freezer. So I kind of I kind of knew how to big buck hunt, I guess, without knowing I knew how to big buck hunt. So when I started, I want to, thinking I want to shoot something big. I think that was 2009, and we're going to talk about some of these. Um, then I basically would shoot. I would big buck hunt whatever my best, as far as the time, whether that was October or that was January. I would just kind of pick the best time and hunt a big buck then. But the rest of the season, I'm going all over the place shooting, anything legal, basically putting meat in the freezer. But I tried to shoot one mature buck. My goal was 130 inches, but you can see not all these are. Um, so I've basically done that since 2009, and we still, like, as far as archery season goes. My dad had the taxidermy shop before I took it over, so when archery season opens, we're really cramming and trying to finish up last year's mounts. That way we can take off. So we would pick like 9 days during archery season, and that's all we would hunt for the most part, other than an evening here and an evening there. And that really hasn't changed a whole lot for me. My goal this year will be the first year I've ever actually got to take off and archery hunt. That's my goal anyway. So that really hasn't changed a whole lot for me. Now I had one kid born 2005, another one born 2007, 2011, or 2009, 2011, and then I have a 2-year-old. So obviously there was some there was some years there that I didn't get to focus on my big buck hunting. And now that my kids are old enough to hunt, which my oldest is a daughter, and she does like a week long hunt with me each season. She don't hunt all the time. She'll go for a week with me. Kind of the same thing with my oldest boy, but the Jay and Tristan, the next two, they've been at the age where they can kind of almost hunt on their own, and at least they can this will be Tristan's first year bow hunting, but they've been gun hunting now for quite a while. Tristan actually shot his first deer when he was 5, and he's 13. I think he killed his first buck when he was 7, a nice one on public. But they kind of turned into my focus, like where I was letting them shoot as many deer as possible, and then when they couldn't go, I would try to go shoot a big buck, and that's hard to do. So this year they're kind of old enough to where I can almost let them hunt by themselves a little bit, which I'm gonna film some of their hunts and things like that. So I'm still a little bit limited on my big buck hunting. But since anything prior to 2020, I think it was, like as far as running dogs, we got, we have some old photos back when you would carry a camera and the deer hit the ground and we put him on the box and we would snap a picture. And we have albums of that. But as far as taking digital pictures or pictures with a phone, I don't think I have any pictures before 2019, 2020, something like that, really. I looked through last night when I was thinking about doing this video and found a few pictures. I might be able to throw some here in the video, but even when I started basically trophy hunting or trying to shoot one trophy buck a year, my goal was I still had to fill that freezer. So I would shoot one trophy buck a year and 8, 10, whatever bucks, legal bucks, to fill the freezer up. For a lot of years, we figured it took at least, like after, we're eating deer obviously through hunting season, but once season ended, it from closing date to date it reopened, we basically had to have 25 deer in freezers to eat from closing day till it opened again, and we got more deer meat, and we processed all our own deer and all that. So that's a lot of deer you got to shoot. But that kind of carried over for me. I would try to shoot the one big buck whenever I could, and then meat hunt. But now that we've had the 5 deer limit, I'm still filling freezers and living off deer meat. But my kids are old enough to where if they shoot, if everybody shoots their, even 3 deer now, but 3, 4, 5 deer, we have plenty of deer meat to get us through till the next season. Like right now, I still have one whole freezer, or a freezer and a half basically, that's flat full of deer. I don't know how many deer are in there, but it's full of meat. So I have more than enough this year. So I really I don't have to shoot my 5 deer anymore if I don't want to. So like last year I shot 1 deer. I think, yeah, I shot 1 deer last year, and I passed a pile of them, and I'm sure I don't care to shoot them. I've shot a bunch of them, so if it's not something that's gonna, I guess, make me happy, I don't care to shoot it. That doesn't mean it has to be a giant. It could just be the hunt. I could be just as happy with a 6-point as I am a 20-point. It doesn't matter to me. So we can talk about a couple of these. And I just picked 4 that I have laying around the shop or laying in the house. And you can see I don't really, that's where I started to say about the pictures. Like I really don't have any pictures of I don't have any pictures of anything because I never cared. Like it was the hunt. Once the deer hit the ground, it was over, and I never thought of it. Like I cut the heads off, did a skull mount, and threw them somewhere. I mean, I haven't took care of them. They're nasty. Some of them were hanging out in barns and stuff. But I wish now, looking back, that I would have took pictures and took care of them and stuff, and I will going forward. But this deer here, I've never put a tape on anything. This is obviously not a giant, but it's a more memorable hunt. All these 4 deer I'm going to talk about were killed on non-quota management areas at the time. This this buck where it's actually a quota now, but the quota is strictly for numbers. Anybody that applies gets the quota. But that's a 14 point. I got him on camera a couple times. There was a lot of guys archery hunting him. Um, I killed him running dogs, but I would target big bucks, even running dogs. I did the video on 25 bucks from a single bedding area. This was one of them. We had tried him for two seasons, and he hadn't changed at all. He looked identical both years. Couldn't tell him apart. Um, the year I missed him, the first year, I had a bad magazine in my gun. Well, he was running dogs, so he's running, and he's coming my direction, but he's kind of staying in the thick. So I was gonna pick gaps and shoot, and I'm out on foot, out in the middle of the block, and when I shot, he came out of the thick, and I was kind of standing on the edge of a prairie, and he runs right by me at like 10 yards with nothing between me and him, and I'm sitting there with a locked up gun. Anyway, we let him get away that day, and then the following year, a guy shot him in archery season. Basically, he was set up from talking to other people. The guy was set up about 300 yards from where the deer bedded, and made a bad shot on him, obviously. And I went back in there. I think it was the second week of general gun season, and he was laying in the exact same place he had laid the year before, and jumped him up and killed him that year. It was a lot of work, even running dogs. I was out there on foot, and I probably ran 3 or 4 miles actually running, most of the time as fast as I could possibly run. I can't do that anymore. I think this was, I don't even remember, 2019 or something when I killed this one. But I was trying to keep him cut off. Well, I wanted to shoot him obviously, but I didn't want him getting north of me, and the wind was blowing south, so I was having to, he was smelling me every time he was coming up there, and I was running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, he came up there and did a loop and was going back to where I knew he was going to cross about half a mile down from me, and I ran as fast as I could, and as soon as I got to where I could see it, I stopped and got ready, and it wasn't just a minute, he came running out there and I shot him. We can get this one out of the way. That was a fun one. And it's the same thing, non-quota. I went in, I'd hunted, trying to think, I killed a few deer in the general area of this, but I'd never hunted this exact area. It was basically across the deep slough from where I had hunted, and this was, I think I killed him Christmas Eve day. So they're just starting to kind of pre-rut a little bit where I was, and I sat on the edge of a slough a couple days prior, and had a couple bucks cross the slough coming back in to like a thicker swamp at 9 o'clock in the morning or something. So I was assuming they're feeding over here. It was almost an island. They're feeding on that island and then coming back out because that island's wide open. They couldn't lay over there. Big oaks, and you could see for long ways. So in the dark that morning, I got in the slough, and I mean, I had to go about neck deep getting across there, and it was cold. But I got across. It was gun season. I got across the slough and just eased up a little bit, and as I was sitting down, I saw a buck. I do actually have some pictures of that one. He was, a decent. I think he was a 7 point. Anyway, he was feeding around. Some does were feeding around. I was just sitting there watching them. I videoed a little bit with my phone, and I just caught movement right on the edge of the slough back to my right, because I crossed the slough and I'm sitting here watching this open. I basically have the wind coming like this, and I caught movement over here, and it was that one. I seen that he was feeding, and I seen that side of his horns, and I didn't give it a second. I stood up to where I could get up over some grass and bushes a little bit and dropped him. But that was a fun one. This buck here, where I did the video the other day in the middle of the day crawling, where I basically crawled through the bedding area. This was the first buck I ever killed there. Um, that was a long time ago. This would have been, well, this is actually my first, when I started trying to trophy hunt. This was the first big buck I ever killed. And I basically hunted my way in. I had a buddy of mine that was hunting it with me. And if you watch that video, that basically the transition line I walked out, we were basically hunting our way in that, and it was gun season, yeah. It was gun season, and hunted our way in, and he ended up killing a really nice buck, like right at 140 inches, and I had saw some big bucks that I hadn't got shots at and things like that, but I found an old oak tree that was blowed down on the edge of one of them little grass openings out in the thick, and there was rubs around it, like, that big, them magnolias and stuff. So I figured, that would might be a good place I could slip in and just set up in that tree. And it had a perfect fork on it where I could sit up there and be in a recliner, so I didn't take any stands or anything like that. And in that place, if you get high, in a lot of places, if you get high, you can see down into them cabbage and all that stuff. So I climbed way up there, and I think it was the first morning I ever sat there. About 9:30, I heard the cabbage busting. Oh, me back up one day, as we were hunting our way in there, a couple days prior, or the day prior, a doe came busting by me, and then this buck came. I was standing, in that thick that I'd basically crawled through. I was slipping up to one of the openings, gonna sit down, and this buck came through with his head on the ground, running the doe, and his horn almost hit me in the leg. I almost had to get out of his way as he bust through the cabbage, and he got out there 45, 50. I could just seeing horns and stuff I couldn't shoot. But anyway, I went back, and then that morning I'd climbed the tree and had a doe, come running through the pond, the little opening, and this buck, this buck is running behind her, and he gets right to the edge, kind of locks it up when he gets to the edge, and as soon as he did, I shot him. But that was a memorable one, because that was actually my first big buck. The following year, this was an older deer here. The following season, I went in, and I think it was my first hunt. I can't remember. It might have been when it might have been, I think it was the season. Yes, it was. I missed the giant out there with my bow. It was that season, and when gun season opened, I think that would have been like the second week of gun, was probably the first time I went out there. And all I did, I walked in there and climbed the exact same tree, and he ran a doe out the exact same trail this one did. Did the same thing, got right to the edge, stopped, bam, shot him. But I try to shoot one like this, just a good solid 120 to 130 inch deer every season if I can. I didn't last year. Last year was a little odd for me, and having a new baby. Um, any day the conditions were right for me to hunt a big buck last year, I wasn't able to go. So hopefully that's changed this year. But I try to shoot one good one every year, at least one good one every year. This year, videoing, I'll probably try to shoot more than one. And the boy, like I said, the boys are old enough now to where they can shoot legal deer in other areas, and we have our meat. But for me, it's about the experience and the hunt. Like once he's dead, I almost wish I could bring him back to life, but I don't care nothing. I don't care nothing about this. Like some of my I've killed a couple deer on private, and I either cut the horns off and made rattling horns off of them and gave them away, or and some of my bigger deer I cut some up and made some chandeliers. Like they don't mean nothing to me. I don't even have pictures of them. But it's the hard hunts, or the something special about the hunt. That's what means something to me. The bone hanging on the wall, I don't care anything about. Well, that's a little bit about me and my history of hunting Florida. If you have any cool stories or hunts or anything, I'd love to hear them, and I read all the comments. I try anything I need to or not need to reply to, but anything I can reply to, I do. If not, I just give it a thumbs up. But just so y'all know, I do read all the comments. If you have a story or something, just drop it in the comments. I'd like to read it. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.